Well, hello. This is Jonathan at the Piano Lesson. It's been a long day today, so I'm kind of starting a bit late, but excited to share with you today some thoughts about the American sound. What is the American sound? Well, I have some ideas, so I'll talk to you about that. And what prompted that? Well, I had found a CD that someone had thrown away. Billy Joel's kind of seminal recording of Piano Man, and that whole album that he did all these great songs, and it was really quite inspiring. I mean, in my opinion, my favorite, let's call him pop composer. You don't use the term anymore. What's a pop composer? But my favorite composer of all time is probably Billy Joel, and I hadn't listened to that recording in many years, but I was impressed with how inventive it is, and particularly its use of bluegrass sounds and country music sounds and banjo and just Americana kind of had kind of a Western feel to it. So what is that? Let me talk about that. I'm gonna play a little bit. I'm gonna ramble and kind of also talk about some other composers like Aaron Copland, who I might have shared this once before. I was lucky enough to meet his pianist, Leo Smit, who was kind enough to listen to me play a Beethoven sonata as a little boy and patted me on the head because I was preparing for my auditions at the Manhattan School of Music. But yeah, let me just ramble a bit here. So, Piano Man. I mean, that's such a simple little tune there, What makes that sound American? And by the way, it just, to me, the music he plays is so optimistic and life-affirming and forward-thinking. I just can't say enough good things about it. But there is this interesting aspect of the harmony where you have these basic chords, but you have this second, this crushed second, and also sometimes this flatted third, and all together those sort of five notes. And what am I doing? I'm just going down the scale, right? Just descending like that. C, G in first inversion, and then depending on what you play here, that could be F in first inversion, A minor, G, F, C in first inversion, D7, 5 of 5, that's the secondary dominant, and then G. Right? So that's the basic sound. To me, the American sound is the sound of freedom. Open spaces, wide open spaces, tumbleweeds, cowboys on horseback, but the good kind, not the kind that did bad things. There's this there's Aaron Copland's theme. Da-da, opens up with this perfect fourth, and the fifth, that's fanfare for a common man. Be-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da, those open fifths. That's American music to me. Now, I kind of got on this because there's a tune that probably a lot of you guys know, a monk tune, Well You Needn't. It's a pretty easy tune. It's a fun tune because it's just dominant chords going up chromatically. And it's kind of interesting because when it goes, the middle of the bridge, it goes up to B, it goes up to the tritone. But the tune is usually, and it's swung. But what if you did it like a kind of a country tune or like a western? So the bass line would be. Now you hear that on one of Billy Joel's tunes. You hear that bass line. That's very close to what kind of became a boogie woogie bass. Or the octaves. I missed that note. Right, that was kind of the boogie woogie phase, but this little blues note. Those parallel sixths, which by the way are probably, of all the things you can practice on the piano, those parallel sixths are incredibly important. There's all different ways to practice those. Sorry. Those, you could do major sixths or just diatonic or going up. Or like do it as a scale. That'll really get you into shape, boy, those parallel sixths. But that's a pretty interesting, that's like a very typical American. I mean, that's like the American, part of the American sound. These sections. There was a pianist named Floyd Kramer who was invented that sound. You'll hear a million country records. Billy Joel on his record has this, which are these notes up here, which to my ear are Asian, and I can't help but think that our Asian immigrants, particularly the Chinese immigrants, and specifically the Chinese workers that built the American railroads, they gave us those sounds. I really think that, the contribution, the Chinese contribution to blues is really overlooked. And, honestly, I'm hardly an ethnomusicologist or a big scholar in that respect, but boy, oh boy, I think there's a lot of similarities between Asian music and African music. The tunings and, the scales, the pentatonic scales, and this, of course, gospel, right? That the 1-4-1 primary chords. And then, rock and roll. Now that's 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's playing in 12. 12, 8. And there's Monk. Bridge. Tremolo. Now, so where was Monk living? Monk was living in the Upper West Side in New York, in Washington Heights, where my father grew up, with a bunch of immigrants from the West Indies. Let me change this. I can see you now. Surprise! So where was Monk? Monk was living in New York. He was an immigrant from the West Indies. I forget from what island precisely in the Caribbean. Could have been in St. Kitts, or I don't remember exactly, but that was the story. And those sounds were in the air, the sounds of the Caribbean. If you listen to Monty Alexander, he talks about this, and he actually made a record of Monk tunes with in a reggae style. Okay, so there's that Caribbean influence. There's Matilda, 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 she take the money and run Venezuela. Right there, that's a pretty, or yellow bird. These thirds. Boy, I remember going on a lot of trips to the Caribbean as a kid with my parents, all over the place, because it's kind of close. It's sort of close to where we lived, not that far. And my mother was a teacher, and we'd go on winter vacations, winter breaks. But boy, I remember just a lot of calypso bands, and just as a little boy, just staking my claim in front of that calypso band. I wouldn't move until they were done playing. I was just glued to them. I would follow them around like a little puppy dog. And I remember getting a present from one of them. Actually, they gave me a set of maracas, and I remember that the maracas had a very strong, very strong smell of cologne from one of the band members who apparently used cologne. Back in those days, men used cologne, lots of cologne. Oh boy! And so so when I got home from my trip, I kind of still had this the smell of cologne from the guys in the band. I must have looked odd, this little white boy kind of trailing along these black guys, but I don't know. Same thing. We had another vacation in Puerto Rico where I met the great Romaine Brown from. You can go on the internet and you can look at the Five Redcaps. But he was actually a brilliant musician. He recorded a lot of vocal, kind of like vocal music from the late 1940s, early 50s. Uh, Bands back then like the Ink Spots and who are the not the Ever, was it the Everly Brothers? I'm trying to remember, but anyway, he went to Curtis. So Curtis, for those of you who might not know, is quite a prestigious music conservatory, as prestigious as any Juilliard or anything. The only difference is that you don't apply to Curtis. Curtis applies to you. Like they invite you to go there. That's how exclusive it is. And he went there, but you'd never know that. But I got to know him. And one evening, gosh, I was a little boy when I met him. I don't know how old I was. I was 9 years old, or 10, or 11. No, let's see, I guess maybe 11. I don't know. But I kept in touch with him over the years. And after I was old enough, I guess I was 19 or whatever, and I was playing music, and I went into New York City and caught him at a spot called Pier 52, which was a bar, a restaurant bar in the theater district. And he was playing there with his buddy, Jimmy Butts. Jimmy Butts, the bass player, the renowned Mr. Jimmy Butts. Look it up on the internet. Imagine this really tall black guy with a white wig, like a big white wig. It was really interesting. It was like looking at a Black George Washington. It was, and the bandstand was kind of elevated behind the bar. It was like pretty high up, and he hadn't heard me play. He hadn't even seen me, and I kind of stunned him by introducing myself, and he invited me up to play. And as I said, I play piano. He's like, well, go ahead and play. And so I played one tune after another, and it was cheering me on. The audience was cheering me on. I was playing all these Duke Ellington tunes, and Jimmy Butts was playing with me. And at the end of the evening, we walked home together, and he was just kind of over the moon, and very complimentary towards me. And he said, "You play music, you play music." And then he kept calling me and giving me lessons over the phone and giving me gigs in New York and in various places. And then I moved to Europe for a while, and soon after, he died at, I believe, at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. He was a big smoker, big drinker. And that was kind of sad, But what a personality he was. I definitely remember that. So very open, very big-hearted. And, setting aside all the things we read in the paper, I mean, that's what America is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the wide open spaces, a place where you have a room to expand for Europeans that come to the United States. My friends who would visit me in New York, and very sophisticated people, interesting people, well-educated, multilingual people, but only used to living in Europe, which are, fairly small cities. And they'd come to New York, and some of them would just freak out. They would really freak out because everything was so big. The only time that ever happened to me in my life was when I went to Texas. I don't even consider Texas part of America. But boy, Texas is another planet, totally another planet. That place is enormous. They don't even have sidewalks. They just have cars and roads and highways, and don't even try to cross the road, on foot. It's a crazy idea. But they're unusual people. Texas is a funny place. Texas, for our Civil War historians, Texas was the last state in the United States after the Civil War to end slavery. And I don't remember precisely when that was. It was in June. There's a holiday, Juneteenth, which is it's an American holiday. It's a black holiday. It celebrates the emancipation of the slaves in Texas separately, when General Grant had to send down troops to Texas because Texas thought, well, yeah, the Civil War's over, but you know what? Let's make some money. let's just, Texas is far away from Washington, D.C. Let's just, we got half a year, so we can milk this. Oh my God. But when I was there, very open people also, very usually friendly, strangely friendly. I mean, I remember sitting in a restaurant all by myself and one other person at the opposite end of the restaurant, like, I don't know, 50, 75 feet away. And he yells over to me. He says, "How you doing?" In a big Southern accent. And I was kind of looked up and I'm like, "I'm okay." and we started talking from across the room. And then he was like, "Well, you're from out of town." And eventually he ended up showing me around town, which was very kind. And he kind of showed me around. And for those of you who have never seen Pee Wee Herman's Great Adventure, watch that, because that kind of gives you a sense of how I felt in Texas. I'll give you an example. We were getting ice cream. I think it was at if they had Cold Stone back then. Cold Stone is a chain of restaurants, but they had this restaurant ice cream place. We were waiting in line, big long line, and I let out this horrific sneeze, really loud sneeze, and I swear, everyone in that line, maybe a dozen people, turned around and in unison said, "God bless you," like I had been possessed by the devil. That's an odd custom we Americans have. We say, "God bless you." I guess the Germans say Gesundheit. I don't know. I suppose every country says something about sneezing, or maybe they don't. Maybe they just, you sneeze and you go on with your life. But America's a funny place. So I'm jumping from one thing to another, but this is kind of how my mind works, and maybe it's why I enjoy playing jazz and being a jazz musician, because as jazz musicians we cast a wide net, and everything is fair game at any given moment. So we take from everything. I'll kind of go back to Monty Alexander's band. He's quite unique. Being from Jamaica, he has a special ability to play reggae with jazz tunes, right, with standards. Okay, and his band that he travels around with, the Kingston, was it the Kingston Trio? I'm trying to remember. But he goes on stage with two rhythm sections. So he has two drummers, two bass players, two guitar players, and they're on opposite ends of the stage. And he'll play a tune, and say I'll be playing Satin Doll, and he'll be swinging, and then and then he'll do he'll start getting into the reggae thing. And just flip a switch like a light switch. I'm not a reggae player, thank you very much. I think you can figure that out. But very plastic, very flexible in his way of thinking, and I think that's what it takes. I was again talking to my relative Arnold today. He's 92, turned 92 in April, so I'm his full-time caregiver, and trying to encourage Arnold to do things. When you get older, when people get older, they need encouragement, just like kids need encouragement. If you let them sit, they'll just sit. You have to give them activities. So we're going to the hardware store, and he was quite a craftsman in his day. I mean, he was a commercial artist, and he knew how to draw and paint and do woodworking. He made this very elaborate record cabinet. He was, ship models. Wooden ship models he would build. He's a funny guy because he will see a piece of tiny little speck, a little insect, like 300 feet away. But if something's right in front of him, he won't see it. It's just how his mind works. But we're going to a hardware store, and he would like to, go in those places. But I said, "Well, you want to go in with me?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll just wait in the car." And I said, "Arnold, the secret to life, there's only one thing that's important in life. You got to be curious. If you're not curious, you're not living life. Life is about taking risks. It's about trying things. It's about wondering, what if I did this? What if I did that? Once you stop doing that, you're not living life anymore, really. I'm not to say that you go out in the world like a crazy person and jump off roofs or something. But, you know, kind of reminded me of my father telling me that to be successful in life, you have to learn to be uncomfortable, which was interesting in the context of Arnold, because Arnold's word is "I'm comfortable." That's his baseline. He'll, you know, if he's happy, he doesn't really say, he never says he's happy. He says, "I'm comfortable," which is fine, you know. But forcing ourselves out of our comfort zones, trying new things, trying to ask, what if I did this? What if I did that? So what if I took a monk tune and I played it in a country style or old Western style? And if you listen to, again, if you listen to Billy Joel's record with Piano Man on it, it really is sophisticated. I mean, and of course he has a very high voice, a very young voice, you know, youthful sounding. The playing on it is so artful. The drummer is using brushes most of the time in rock and roll. I mean, it's rock and roll. I mean, it is rock and roll, but it's not rock and roll. It's something else. I don't know. I'm not playing a lot of these for you, partly because of YouTube. You know, I'm just don't want to give them the satisfaction of playing that. You know, they'll ding me if I play a piece of Mozart. They'll consider it copyrighted. But listen to Aaron Copland's Fanfare for a Common Man. That's about as close as you get to America as possible. I mean, he is America's Beethoven in a sense. Although you could argue that Duke Ellington is too, but really, what he does with just some simple, perfect. What he does with some simple, open, you know, perfect fourths and fifths, just magic, absolute magic, you know. Well, we're coming to a close. It's been a long day. I hope you guys have a great week. And once again, thank you, Francesco, for your good advice. I'll try to put some chapters in my videos so people can, you know, go to the stuff that they might find interesting first. But you see how I'm rambling. Like, what kind of chapter can I? Maybe an index. I don't know. Alrighty. See you later. Have a great week. And oh yes, one quick thing. I have put together a band, my first band in a long time. I located a great bass player and drummer, and so probably having some gigs at our new jazz club here, Conway's, in August and October, November, and maybe some other dates. Alrighty, take care and be good. Bye-bye.